Star Farm and the Counterattack of the 80s. Chapter 1, An Unexpected Crossing. Zhou Ningshuang, a doctor of agriculture at Blue Star, has been working hard and unremittingly to improve crop varieties throughout his life. Her research results have brought Blue Star's agriculture into a new era, and she has been invited to attend many international academic conferences, becoming a role model for the younger generation of agricultural scholars. However, fate played a big joke on her. Just as she finally made her most important research breakthrough and was about to leave for a meeting of the Interstellar Alliance, a sudden accident left her in a trance. She felt like she was being sucked into a black hole by an invisible force, and it was pitch black before her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself in a strange place. It's no longer a blue star, and the high-tech equipment and futuristic buildings around her make her a little confused. She looked around, and the blue sky in front of her was filled with all sorts of flying machines, and in the distance, several glittering planets floated in the shimmer. This is... she muttered in surprise, interstellar? She soon realizes that she has traveled to an interstellar world. At this time, she didn't have any memory confusion, because the memory of that body had long been integrated with her. Moreover, she actually found herself an ordinary farmer in this world, surrounded by a green interstellar farm. Her gaze swept over the fertile farmland, most of which were alien varieties unimaginable to Blue Star. Zhou Ningshuang even felt that these lands were more fertile than any of her previous ones, as if she was in an interstellar world of infinite possibilities. Chapter 2, Work hard to make money and buy 3 planets. Zhou Ningshuang did not intend to be a commoner who relied on the interstellar government in this strange world. She instinctively knew that if she wanted to gain a foothold in this interstellar world, she had to rely on her own strength, especially her profession, agriculture. After some exploration, she found that although the technology of this world is advanced, agriculture on many planets is still in its infancy, and even some planets have extremely low agricultural productivity. She realized that the demand was enormous, and she was able to use the agricultural knowledge she had accumulated at Blue Star to create a new one. So, she started with Star Farm and began to expand aggressively. She has built her farm into the most productive agricultural base in the galaxy, and has attracted a large number of buyers and partners with its high-quality agricultural products. She gradually became a leading figure in the interstellar farming world, earning a fortune from the interstellar market. After several years of hard work, Zhou Ningshuang finally succeeded in buying the 3 planets. The vast size of each planet, with the most suitable soil and climate for growing crops, allows her to push interstellar agriculture to a higher level, thus greatly increasing the interstellar food security and agricultural production value. However, just as she was about to enjoy the fruits of her hard work, fate once again gave her a surprise. Chapter 3, Unexpected Matching. Zhou Ningshuang had just completed a big deal on the interstellar market and was about to return to her farm to rest for a while, but she unexpectedly received a message from the brain system. This intelligent brain system is a high-end artificial intelligence system set up by the Interstellar Alliance to match suitable partners. This time, it actually paired her with the Supreme Commander of the Interstellar Alliance, Hesty Shavik. Hemming Shavik, the Supreme Commander of the Interstellar Alliance, is known as the strongest god of war in the interstellar world with agility and wisdom, not only as a military leader, but also as a hero of the entire alliance. It is said that there was never a shortage of admirers around him, both women and men. However, Hemming's personality is cold and arrogant, indifferent to marriage and relationship matters, and even turns a blind eye to all suitors. Zhou Ningshuang was very surprised. She couldn't understand why the Xi brain system would pair an agricultural expert like her with a god of war commander. Isn't this a ridiculous joke? What the hell is going on? She grabbed the shiny silver display and asked, confused. Xi brain's response was calm and ruthless. After a match analysis, your genes, personality, and lifestyle habits are very compatible with Herman Shavik, which is an ideal match and can achieve the maximum happiness expectations of both parties. The perfect match. Zhou Ningshuang chuckled. She clenched the display screen. Just treat me as a planting machine. However, in the face of the strong push of Xi brain, Zhou Ningshuang was still a little shaken after all. In fact, Hermit Shavik's fame spread far and wide, and his handsome appearance and outstanding talent have fascinated countless women. Although she herself has never had high expectations for love, such a match really confuses her. Chapter 4, The Trick of Fate. Finally, at an interstellar conference, Zhou Ningshuang met Hemming Shavik. He was more handsome than she had imagined, with a tall figure and deep eyes that were impossible to ignore. He stood in the crowd, exuding an incomparably coercive feeling, like an insurmountable mountain. Zhou Ningshuang, we need to discuss this cooperation. Herman Shavik's tone was calm and authoritative, and he didn't seem particularly interested in her presence. Zhou Ningshuang's mood was a little complicated. She nodded slightly, and forcibly suppressed the fluctuations in her heart. All right, Commander, we can start talking. However, just as she was about to negotiate with Hemming, something unexpected happened. The conference room of the Interstellar Convention was suddenly attacked, and a group of unknown enemies broke in and launched a fierce attack. Hermit Shavik immediately showed great combat effectiveness and led the alliance's troops to a swift counterattack. Just when Zhou Ningshuang felt a little powerless, a meteorite accidentally hit the area where she was, and the powerful shock wave shook her unconscious. Chapter 5, Rebirth and Counterattack. When Zhou Ningshuang opened her eyes again, she found that she was back in Blue Star, and back in the 80s. She traveled back in time to the time after her death, when she was still a young doctor of agriculture, and no matter what, she could never return to that interstellar world. Thief god, count yourself ruthless. She crossed her waist and grunted angrily. However, as time went on, she began to think, what comes is what is safe. She knew it was just a trick of fate, and she wasn't going to let her life stand still. The 80s of Blue Star is an era full of opportunities and challenges, and with her expertise in agriculture, she will once again usher in a brilliant counterattack. This time, I'm going to rewrite my destiny. There was a determined glint in her eyes, determined to create her own miracle in this world. Chapter 6, A New Beginning. Zhou Ningshuang began her life in the 80s. She remains focused on agricultural research, not only bringing advanced agricultural technology back to Blue Star, but also using her knowledge of the interstellar world to build a solid foundation in the technology and market of this era. Over time, she gradually reached the pinnacle of the agricultural field, and her success has attracted attention from different fields. However, Hesti Shavik of the interstellar world never appeared. Perhaps, he is still fighting heroically on the battlefield of that interstellar world, and she is rewriting her own story on this Blue Star of the past. Chapter 7, The Dislocation of Time and the Ingenuity of Chance. Zhou Ningshuang's agricultural career progressed rapidly in the 80s, and she used advanced agricultural knowledge and technology to not only successfully improve the local crop varieties at that time, but also established a number of agricultural cooperatives, introducing the concept of modern agriculture into this era. However, these achievements did not make her feel completely satisfied. Although her career in Blue Star is gradually on track, she can never forget the interstellar world and the image of Herman Shavik. Every time in the dead of night, she can't help but wonder, why did she struggle so hard in the interstellar world, but was finally tricked by fate and returned to the Blue Star of the past? Hermit Shavik's glimpse still leaves a deep imprint on her heart to this day. Even though she didn't have a deep relationship with him anymore, his calm and determined eyes seemed to be the driving force for her to pursue success. If only I could see him again. Zhou Ningshuang muttered inadvertently. However, she knew, it was just a pipe dream. Time is out of place, and fate may not give her the opportunity to meet again. But just as she was taking the representatives of agricultural cooperatives to the National Agricultural Conference on a sunny day, an unexpected piece of news turned her world upside down once again. Chapter 8, A Return to the Stars. At the conference, a representative from the Interstellar suddenly appeared in front of her, and this mysterious representative looked dignified and resolute. Zhou Ningshuang's heart moved. The expression of this representative was somewhat similar to Hemming Shavik, although he was not as high as Hemming, but it gave people a familiar feeling. Dr. Zhou Ningshuang, I'm a representative from the Interstellar Alliance, and Commander Hesti Shavik sent me. After briefly introducing himself, the man said bluntly. Hearing this name, Zhou Ningshuang's heartbeat accelerated suddenly. She couldn't believe her ears. The representative in front of her was actually related to Herman Shavik. Hemming. Commander? She asked unconsciously, with a hint of shock in her tone. Yes, Dr. Chow. Commander Herman Shavik cares about you. He has heard of your outstanding achievements in agriculture and wants to work with you. The representative's tone was very formal, and there was a hint of respect in his eyes. Zhou Ningshuang couldn't help frowning, and her heart fluctuated. How could she believe that all this had something to do with Hemming? He had obviously disappeared from her life. How could he reappear? We cooperate. She hesitated slightly, and asked tentatively. Yes. The representative nodded. Commander Hesti knew that you had put a lot of effort into the field of agriculture, and he thought that now you could lead the Interstellar Alliance to a breakthrough in agriculture. This will not only help the Alliance, but also take your business forward. After Zhou Ningshuang heard this, her heart was like a mixture. Her heart is full of contradictions, both nostalgia for the past and longing for the future. It's a rare opportunity, and it may be the only way for her to return to the interstellar world, but is she willing to engage with Hesti Shavik again? She still remembered the cold, powerful man. No matter what, the feelings in her heart could never be completely erased. Let me think again. Zhou Ningshuang was silent for a moment, her tone calm but firm. Chapter 9, A Farewell to the Past. After returning home, Zhou Ningshuang stood in front of the window, staring at the city scene in the distance, and her heart was in chaos. The Blue Star in the 80s gave her many memories and countless opportunities. Her agricultural career is thriving, and her life is calm and stable. She knew that if she chose to return to the interstellar world, she would enter a new world and face more unknowns and challenges. But she knew in her heart that the Interstellar Alliance and Hesti Shavik might bring her a brighter future. However, is it really worth it? Will she be able to let go of everything in the past and accept the man who was once cold and high-minded? At this moment, Zhou Shuang's mobile phone rang. She opened the message, and Heman Shavik sent it succinctly and directly, "I know you are going to make the right choice. Anyway, I'll be waiting for you there." Zhou Shuang's heartbeat accelerated unconsciously, and at that moment, she felt that the whole world was no longer ordinary. This news may be simple, but it has caused huge waves in her heart. He Ming's tone was so firm that she couldn't help but believe it, and he had been silently waiting for her response. What should I do?" Zhou Shuang muttered softly. Chapter 10, The Choice. After thinking about it for a long time, Zhou Shuang finally made a decision. She could no longer let the doubts of her past bind her. The opportunity provided by the Star Alliance was something she couldn't easily give up. And Herman Shaik's trust and waiting also rekindled her hope for the future. "I'm ready," she whispered to herself. In the days that followed, Zhou Shuang began to sort out all her careers in Langxing, ready to say goodbye to the past. She knows that no matter how uncertain the future is, all these choices will be a fresh start in her life. A few months later, Zhou Shuang boarded a flight to the interstellar world and re-embarked on the once familiar but unfamiliar interstellar land. She knew in her heart that this was not only the beginning of a journey, but also a rebirth of fate. When she stood in front of Herman Shavik, the two of them looked at each other as if time had stood still. She looked at those deep eyes, and countless emotions welled up in her heart. "Let's start over," Herman Shavik whispered. Zhou Shuang smiled slightly, knowing in her heart that this was not only the beginning of a cooperation, but also the moment when she rewrote her destiny with the world. Chapter 11, An Interstellar Storm. Zhou Shuang's interstellar return was not as calm as she thought. When she arrived at the capital planet of the Interstellar Alliance, Syed, Hesti Shavik was no longer the lonely god of war she remembered. Although he is still the strongest commander in the interstellar world, in her eyes, he has a trace of unknown haze. He led her through the headquarters of the Interstellar Alliance, through the glittering corridors, and finally into a very simple and spacious office. Hemming Shavik has taken off his military uniform at this moment, wearing a set of high-tech black clothes, showing a cold temperament. "Zhou Shuang, from today onwards, you will be in charge of the reform plan of the Alliance's agriculture." He Ming's tone was calm and firm. Zhou Shuang nodded, but she was slightly uneasy in her heart. Although she has long been accustomed to dealing with various problems in agriculture, this is undoubtedly a huge challenge for her in the face of the entire Interstellar Alliance's agricultural transformation plan. "Commander, this is a difficult task, and I need to know more about the current state of the Alliance's agriculture." Zhou Shuang opened her mouth and said, her eyes revealing a determination not to admit defeat. He Ming watched her silently, with an imperceptible glimmer in his eyes. He never seemed to really reveal his complicated emotions to her, but responded coldly, "You'll get used to everything here very quickly. This is your realm and the place I trust." Zhou Shuang felt as if she was attracted to this cold and powerful man, and at the same time vaguely felt the loneliness behind him. Why does Hesti Shavik, a man who can't even be shaken by the Interstellar Alliance, place so much emphasis on agriculture? The story behind him seemed far deeper than she had imagined. Chapter 12, Persistent Trust. With the help of He Ming, Zhou Shuang began to gain an in-depth understanding of the current state of agriculture in the Alliance. The agricultural development of the Interstellar Alliance is limited by the differences in ecosystems and resource allocation on different planets, and the agricultural technology of many planets is still in its infancy, with low crop productivity and lack of sufficient resources and scientific research support. The agricultural knowledge and technology possessed by Zhou Shuang can fill this gap. She is determined to introduce Blue Star's agricultural technology to the interstellar world, and customize agricultural transformation according to the characteristics of different planets. However, the plan was not without its challenges. Within the coalition, some high-level officials are skeptical of the agrarian reform plan, arguing that such an investment is too risky and unlikely to produce immediate results. They are more concerned with the development of the military and scientific and technological spheres, and are not keen on supporting agriculture. Zhou Shuang and He Ming faced these pressures together, and the two began to have difficult meetings and negotiations. He Ming was always calm and barely showed any emotion, but Zhou Shuang knew that there was trust in her hidden in his eyes, and this trust gave her more courage. After a meeting, Zhou Shuang returned to the office tiredly, and He Ming also followed. She stood in front of the window, staring at the bustling scene of Syed, silently thinking about her future plans. "Commander, do you really believe me completely?" Zhou Shuang turned his head and looked at He Ming. He Ming stood in front of her, his eyes like cold stars. "Yes, I trust you, Frost. You may not understand, but it's not just about agriculture, it's about the future of the entire Interstellar Alliance. And you can change that." Zhou Shuang was stunned, she felt a shock that she had never felt before. She knows that Hemming's trust means more than career cooperation, but also the invisible emotional connection. She lowered her head slightly, and a warmth rose in her heart that she had never felt before. "I'll try," she replied in a low voice, a flash of determination in her eyes. Chapter 13, The Conspiracy Behind the Scenes. With the advancement of the reform plan, Zhou Ningshuang gradually gained a firm foothold in the Interstellar Alliance, and her agricultural techniques and ideas began to blossom on different planets. However, just when everything seems to be on track, a plot unfolds. One day, Zhou Ningshuang suddenly received an anonymous phone call, who told her that there were forces within the alliance that were trying to sabotage her agricultural reform plan, and that they might use her as a breakthrough to launch an attack on her. These people are full of threats to her abilities and plans, trying to stop her success by all means. Although Zhou Ningshuang had heard many rumors about the power struggle within the alliance, this warning made her uneasy. She began to investigate covertly, and discovered that there were indeed high-ranking figures engaged in unobscure activities that were directly opposed to her plans. She knew that if this conspiracy was not revealed, the future of the entire Interstellar Federation would be in turmoil, and her plans for agricultural reform would be in vain. Chapter 14, Revealing the Truth. With the help of Hemming, Zhou Ningshuang began to conduct a secret investigation and gradually find out the conspirators behind it. In this process, Hemming's calmness and prudence have become her strongest backing. Eventually, they succeeded in uncovering a huge political conspiracy within the alliance and bringing the culprits to light. After a thrilling and witty struggle, Zhou Ningshuang successfully defended her agricultural reform plan and cemented her position in the Interstellar Alliance in one fell swoop. "This is our common victory," Hemming said to Zhou Ningshuang at the final celebration banquet. Zhou Ningshuang raised her head and looked at Hemming, her eyes flashing with a different light than before. She knows that this trust and support has long gone beyond a simple business partnership. In her heart, hope for the future rose again. Chapter 15, The Edge of Love. After this series of twists and turns, the relationship between Zhou Ningshuang and Hemming Shavik gradually changed subtly. From the initial partners, the two have gradually developed into each other's most trusting existence. During the leisure time of an interstellar cruise, Hemming finally broke his long-standing silence and said, "Frost, maybe I should tell you something." Zhou Ningshuang looked at him, and her heartbeat accelerated involuntarily. She knew that this moment would be a turning point in their relationship. "I didn't choose to work with you just because of your talents." Hemming's tone became soft and low. "From a long time ago, I felt that you were the one who could change the fate of the stars. Whereas, you are also the most important person in my heart." Zhou Ningshuang's heart was shocked by these words, and her eyes were full of indescribable emotion. "I understand," she replied softly. At that moment, the silence between the two was no longer indifferent, but full of anticipation and hope for the future. Their relationship is no longer just a political and career cooperation, but a love that is quietly budding. Chapter 16, The Interweaving of Destinies. With the gradual implementation of the agricultural reform plan, Zhou Ningshuang's name has become a legend in the Interstellar Alliance. It was not only her skills and ideas that brought the Alliance's agriculture to life, but also her collaboration with Hermit Shavik that became the most influential symbol of the Alliance. Whenever she stands in front of everyone, Hemming's figure is always with her, and the two are no longer just colleagues or partners. However, just as they were in full swing in their careers, Zhou Ningshuang found that her inner struggle was getting stronger and stronger. During this time, the relationship between her and Hemming gradually developed into a deep dependence and bond, but she knew that Hemming's past and responsibilities made him unable to pursue the future he wanted like her. "Frost, you once said that all this is not only for you to farm, but also to reclaim your home and hope." Hemming suddenly spoke in a private meeting, his eyes deep, "And now, you have changed the future of the stars, but have you thought about the consequences of these changes?" Zhou Ningshuang's heart was shocked. This was the first time she had heard Hemming express his concerns so bluntly. She understood that he was not questioning her abilities, but worried about the turmoil that could lie ahead. Interstellar peace is fragile, and her reforms could change that balance. "I know, Commander." Zhou Ningshuang's tone was slightly low, "but every change, no matter how difficult, can bring more hope. I chose this path because I believed it was the right one." She paused, then continued, "But that doesn't mean I can give up the life I want." Hemming stared at her, and this time, there was no indifference or distance in his eyes, only infinite care and understanding. He walked slowly towards her, gently reaching out and taking her wrist. "You're not alone on this path, Frost. I will always be there for you, no matter how unpredictable the future may be." At this moment, Zhou Ningshuang felt that his heart was being pulled closer by an invisible force. She knows that no matter what the future holds, this support and trust from Hemming will become her strongest backing. Chapter 17, The End of Time. As time passed, the relationship between Zhou Ningshuang and Hemming Shavik became deeper and deeper. Their collaboration is no longer just a work connection, but an interweaving of each other's hearts. Zhou Shuang's agricultural program has been a phenomenal success in the Interstellar Alliance, not only solving the food problem of several planets, but also changing the lives of countless people. She grew in fame and became the queen of the intergalactic farming realm. However, when she reached the pinnacle of her career, a sudden news turned her world upside down again. Dr. Zhou Shuang, Commander Hemming is on an extremely important mission, and this may be the most critical challenge of his life. The Alliance's internal communications suddenly sent such news, and then came the news that shocked Zhou Shuang. Hemming Shavik was assigned to fight against an interstellar military conflict, which would be a war with no way out. The military position where Hemming was located had entered a state of full alert. This war will decide the fate of the Interstellar Alliance, and the existence of Hemming cannot be absent no matter what. Zhou Shuang's heart suddenly beat violently. She wanted to go to Hemming immediately and tell him that no matter what happened, she would be by his side, but she understood that the end of all this might have been doomed. Frost, no matter where I go, my heart will always be with you. At the moment of parting, Hemming hugged her tightly into his arms, and at that moment, Zhou Shuang felt a warmth and determination that he had never felt before. Commander, I'll wait for you. Zhou Shuang responded softly, but indescribable emotions surged in her heart. Chapter 18, The Frontier of Fate. In the days after Hemming's expedition, Zhou Shuang's mood became extremely heavy. The situation in the interstellar war is becoming more and more tense, and her days are filled with thoughts and worries about Hemming. Whenever she stood alone in front of the window, looking at the bustling scene on the Sciat Star, she would always recall the time spent with Hemming, and her heart was full of reluctance. A few months later, Hemming finally returned victorious, but the cost of the war also cost him great sacrifices. Although the Interstellar Alliance was able to maintain peace in the end, Hemming's health was severely damaged as a result. Zhou Shuang could barely bear the news, and the pain in her heart almost made her unable to breathe when she saw Hemming's weak figure. Commander, please stop pushing yourself. Zhou Shuang stood in front of the hospital bed, holding Hemming's hand, and her tone was choked. Hemming smiled weakly. Frost, it's all worth it. If I can protect this star, protect you, I willingly. Zhou Shuang lowered her head, and tears slipped quietly. She knows that the price of this love is still too heavy after all. However, this is the path she has chosen. She is willing to go down with Hemming, no matter what the future holds. Chapter 19, The Bondage of the Future. A few years later, Zhou Shuang and Hemming Shavik jointly created a more stable interstellar farming system, and their efforts in cooperation not only changed the entire alliance, but also helped countless planets prosper. Zhou Shuang's agricultural skills are praised by the world, and Hemming is still the strong, calm commander, and their names are forever engraved in the history of the stars. At an interstellar celebration, Zhou Shuang stood beside Hemming, looking at the admiration of many interstellar people, and his heart was infinitely emotional. We've finally come this far. Hemming whispered. Zhou Shuang smiled slightly and held his hand. Yes, this is our common future. She knows that no matter how many challenges and twists and turns she has experienced, in the end, the fate of her and Hermann Schaak has long been closely intertwined, and every day in the future will be more brilliant because of this love and trust.